Alright, hey guys, and welcome to my spoiler review of Black Widow. So, yeah, I just recently watched this film. I was lucky to be able to catch it. We haven't had any good MCU films for a while, and it's going to stay that way for a very long time because Black Widow is not one of them. It is, however, possibly better than Wonder Woman 1984. Anyway, here's my spoiler breakdown. I'm not sure how you guys are going to take this, but I'm going to be extremely honest with you, and I always do. There's no reason for me to be, doing otherwise. So let me just go through and try to tell you what really happened in the story and the things I like and I didn't like. So let's just go through it. So we start this story in Natasha's childhood. I'm not sure if there's a photo here, but basically she starts off somewhere in Ohio, and they are in the states. They are in US, and it's possible that the Red Guardian and his wife. What do you call this, has been taking some kind of place, just like being hidden as covert operatives in in Ohio, and they eventually get hunted down by a bunch of what do you call these federal agents, and I believe these agents are possibly US agents because they do escaped to find this guy called Dreykov, and Dreykov is the villain in this story. He is the guy who is in charge of all the widows. He creates the Black Widows. He handles the Red Room, and he trains all of the people. So the thing about this story that didn't really work out is the fact that the thing about Black Widow is that she is the least superpowered character among all the Avengers. Even Hawkeye has this extreme, accuracy ability, which is technically superhuman. He may not be a special ability, a power, but he is superhuman in the sense that he has an uncanny ability to hit his target. But the Black Widow doesn't have any of that. So this could have been the film to actually show that all the things that she excels at and why she should be also considered to be a main character, but that's not the case. In this story, the main character is actually her sister, Yelena, and the story is more about her because she is the Black Widow that comes to her senses when some kind of red vial of chemicals hit her face, and this happens when she's in pursuit of someone on the run, and it turns out they're carrying a vial of red chemicals that Dreykov wants. So Dreykov sends the widows after that person, and that person sprays one of the vials onto Yelena's face, and Yelena realizes that she and all the other widows are actually under some kind of mind control. This didn't make sense to me because a lot of these assassins, when they train from a really young age, they show extreme loyalty. There's no reason for them to put some kind of chemical to control their minds, and they have a tracker in their legs. So, I mean, you'd rather just do it Mission Impossible style, where you just put a single tracker or microchip bomb in your brain and just tell them, if you don't follow me, I'll blow your head up, or blow their head up anyway when they stop following you, and other people will realize it. And it also acts as a tracker. Whereas in this story, they're being mind controlled by some kind of chemical, and they need this red chemical to remove that mind control. And the tracker in their foot is extremely easy to remove. Yelena does it. She just pulls out a knife, and she pulls the tracker out. So let me just adjust this a little bit. Sorry, my OCD is kicking in. So yeah, she just pulls the tracker out, and she continues to be on the run. And the story starts off, showing the young this all these four people in their younger days, where Natasha and Yelena are kids. And these two so-called parents, who are not really parents, which involve the Red Guardian and also a widow, are actually one together as a family. They escape from these federal agents, but right after that, there's this beautiful montage. The montage shows like everything that's happening here is very realistic. It's things that happen in the real world. There are, the fight in the shadows that has to be won, that happened during the war, after the war. There's a lot of things that are still happening in the world out there, involving training assassins, training people with special abilities, pushing the limits, using chemicals and trying to win the super soldier war, and all these kinds of things, where they make it seem like this movie is going to poke on those things and show how much bigger the world really is, but it doesn't really do that because all of the montage scenes shown are all like stories, news of things happening around in the real world. But in reality, in this film, or rather, not in reality, in this film, that none of that really takes place. Like none of the events in this film actually are taken to the rest of the world. So it feels like for some reason they're locked away from everything else that's happening. Now, at first, I thought that they're not really showing the connection to the rest of the world because all these people are very covert. They want to show how much of a fight this really is in the shadows, but it also makes the film feel a lot smaller than it actually is. That's another funny thing. You never really see anyone else involved besides this family, and all these four people are the only ones trying to take down Dreykov, and it happens pretty easily. There's no difficulty in doing so, and we'll get to that. So the story continues from the montage after the family escapes to Yelena getting hit by the vial, and then from there it goes to Natasha after the events of Civil War, and she's on the run. She is, what do you call this? Didn't sign the Sokovian Accords, right? So she's a vigilante. She's being on. She's under pursuit by the U.S. government, and she goes to seek shelter. So she finds this guy who has like a caravan in the middle of nowhere, and he's like a shack full of stuff for her to survive on. So she thanks him. He's a good old friend. He even leaves all the supplies and weapons and whatever. And there's apparently a generator that he runs on, and the generator runs on fuel. And exactly that very night, there's like already a defect with the generator, so she has to go and find some kind of a little. I think it's a spark plug. I could be wrong, but it's a little thing that causes the generator not to work. So she takes a drive. She's on her way to what do you call this? To find the spare part, and she gets attacked by the Taskmaster. Now, the Taskmaster, yes, I know the disappointment. It is true, Taskmaster is indeed a woman. It is a gender swapped character in this film. Taskmaster is not a guy. But that's not my problem. Quite frankly, my issue with Taskmaster is not the gender swapping. It's the fact that Taskmaster didn't really live up to my expectations of showing him learning and actually being able to counter fight his opponents, because he easily gets beaten in hand-to-hand combat, or rather she easily gets beaten in hand-to-hand combat multiple times. And there are times, of course, it's quite clearly they're showing that Taskmaster, can be beaten by people because they have to find a way to stop her. But that's not the point. It's the fact that Taskmaster just doesn't seem to stand out compared to a lot of other villains we've seen. And that seems to be my problem. Taskmaster just doesn't do anything really well. There's an entire army of widows that are sent to fight Black Widow and her family, and Taskmaster is only dealing with one or two people at a time. He either he fights the Red Guardian, which is fair enough, Super Soldier, whatever, or he's fighting Black Widow, and Black Widow is absolutely very much more than capable of defending herself against Taskmaster. And it also turns out that everyone is under control. Taskmaster is also under some sort of a control, and I really found all of that really putting off the character of Taskmaster. It doesn't really show how Taskmaster has his own personality in the comics. In this story, Taskmaster has zero personality. It's just an almost dead daughter of Dreykov that Natasha apparently tried to kill in when she was young. Survive. Natasha carried that regret, but realizes that she was actually kept alive by Dreykov and turned into some sort of ultimate weapon. And that ultimate weapon is not really the ultimate weapon either. It's just a disappointment, if you ask me. Anyway, Taskmaster has this cool ability where he does enjoy watching a lot of movies. He watches Civil War. He watches possibly all the other Avengers films before that. And by watching those films, he actually learns how to fight like the rest of the Avengers. And only, of course, those that are not super powered, because Taskmaster doesn't really have any powers. Taskmaster can use Captain America's shield, Hawkeye's bow, Black Panther's finger blades, and I believe even as a sword. And we don't really see any characters using a sword in the MCU before this, before Civil War. I do know Hawkeye uses a sword in Endgame, but I'm not sure where Taskmaster learned to use the sword from, but he could have learned it from any samurai watching any samurai fight, or just watching fights in general, because there are people who use swords out there in the real world. So yeah, Taskmaster has learned a lot of fighting styles and is capable of definitely going hand to hand with Black Widow, but it doesn't really show how Taskmaster is any more scarier or powerful of a villain compared to a lot of other villains we've seen. It doesn't really show any capability because Taskmaster doesn't think for herself. She is just a mind controlled machine that's told to just kill Black Widow and is completely under Dreykov's control, which makes Dreykov the real villain of this story, which is fine. I mean, it's fine. You have a villain that's controlling everything from behind the shadows, but I just really wish that Taskmaster actually had a personality of her own, considering how well the comics have depicted Taskmaster in the past. So Taskmaster tries to take down Natasha. She's going to get like some spark plug for her generator or whatever, but it turns out Taskmaster is actually after the vials that are used to that are being used to try to stop this entire Widow army from losing all the mind control effect. And the reason the vials show up is because Yelena had those vials sent to Natasha, and because she believes that Natasha is the only Avenger that would trust her and help her. And when the moment she meets Yelena, they start a fight. No one knows why they fight. They just fight for some stupid reason, and then because they need each other's help. So they start by fighting, and then they just continue their day like usual. I think it's a Tuesday for them to start a fight between sisters and just continue. Regardless, there's a lot of fight scenes in this film that are absolutely not realistic, in the sense where I thought the first fight scene between the Black Widow and the Taskmaster was pretty cool. They fought on top of this bridge. It's very hand to hand. It's really nice. But right after that, right after she fights Yelena, they're being pursued by a bunch of Black Widows who catch them, in Yelena's place. And these Black Widows, they are running across rooftops and jumping and all that. And then suddenly they try to vault to another rooftop by using some kind of chimney that they crack, and the thing is just falling, so they use the momentum to hang on to reach the other side. And Yelena falls and busts through one of her windows, whereas Black Widow falls down like 4 or 5 stories, hitting things along the way down. And she's not hitting soft things. She's not hitting like like cloth or clothing lines or power lines or something like that to break the fall. She's hitting like the ventilation ducts, these kinds of like walls, slab walls and whatever, and she falls to the ground, and she's absolutely fine, and it makes absolutely no sense. Like, you want to show the Red Guardian is really strong, that he can flip the back of like the carriage of a truck. Captain America can hold on a helicopter. All these things, fine. You tell me that they're super soldiers, they can do all that. I understand. How could Black Widow survive that fall? First of all, um, yeah. First of all, she wouldn't possibly, like, even if she did survive it, she would have at least had like half the bones in her lower body broken. And the way she falls, she really lands like a cat on her feet, sort of, and she's really, really fine, and it is terrifying. Like, I wonder who the real super soldiers are in the story, because Natasha has to be one of them, considering how ridiculously strong she is. And that's not all. The characters also have ridiculous amounts of luck that and things that go their way. It's almost like watching the film 2012, because there's a scene where Yelena actually pilots this helicopter to try to rescue the Red Guardian from this kind of prison that he's held in. And the helicopter is being shot at by like 100 soldiers, and the bullets do absolutely nothing to the helicopter. For some reason, they do absolutely nothing. And at the same time, what do you call this? There's a lot of other fight scenes that take place between the widows, where the main characters leave completely untouched. They are unscratched, and it feels super unrealistic. It really takes the like, it really shows you that this is truly like a little cartoon we're watching here for kids. There's no reason to show them as like these covert spies that's trying to solve like some kind of evil organization that's trying to train kids. There's none of that. It's just like another day in the park where these people just get to fight each other, and they just need a reason to make the story feel like it has a greater purpose when it really does not. Even the scene where they go to save the Red Guardian from this prison. What do you call this? There's like an avalanche that is caused by Yelena firing like this RPG rocket or something from the helicopter. And what do you call this? The avalanche kills literally everyone else in the prison as the Red Guardian escapes on the helicopter, but none of them have shown any form of regret or remorse for the action they've done of murdering like thousands of prisoners, possibly, and innocent people as well, who were just caught in the act. And these people are mass murderers, don't get me wrong. They are the villains of the story. Natasha is in no way a hero. Neither is Yelena, neither is Red Guardian, neither is the other wife who's a Black Widow. They're all just villains. There's really no point to this film besides just a bunch of action sequences. And there's also really bad CGI, especially in the fight that was so well promoted in the trailer, which is a fight where Black Widow and Taskmaster are fighting while falling from the sky. And I thought it was absolutely insane when the fight started. But the moment they get the close up shots of these characters, you can clearly see that the outline of the CGI and the actual person really shows, and it's not really seam. It's like you can clearly see the seams of what's going on. It's not seamless in any way, as the other MCU films are, which I feel is really painful to watch. And I've no idea why they didn't just take their time to fix those little things when they could do so many other amazing CGI scenes. So it didn't make sense. So there is good and bad CGI. Mostly bad because the rest of the scenes don't really use much CGI. There's just a lot of close quarter combat, which is fine. I'm fine with that. But yeah, the CGI scenes just didn't work out really well. It felt like halfway through that you're just watching, not really the same movie anymore. That's how I can put it. Like if the CGI was bad throughout the film, you kind of realize, okay, this is the technology they have. They got to work with it, and that's what most B movies do. But this is not a B movie. This movie had ridiculously high budgets, and when the CGI starts good but just doesn't really follow through, it feels like something really bad happened halfway through, and things just didn't work out. So another thing about the fight sequences is okay, the action is decent, the close quarter combat, the hand-to-hand combat is okay, but as I said, Taskmaster just doesn't perform as well as you would expect him to in those scenes because he's not really intimidating. There's no real threat besides, oh, he's going to punch me a while and then just run away a little bit. I kick him back and run away. Sorry, not him, her. I apologize once again. Taskmaster has always been a guy to me in the comics, but once again, as I said, I have nothing against Taskmaster being a woman in the film. You want to gender swap the character, you want to race swap the character, I don't care. None of that is essential to the character being who they are in the comics. What's essential to the character being who they are in the comics is has more so to do with their capabilities, their ability to execute their role as who they are and what they do. And Taskmaster, one of the things that Taskmaster does is strategize, and we don't see any of that happening here because this Taskmaster is just like some kind of puppet. And this comes me back to something like the Starfire in what's that Titans, DC Titans, right? Starfire. So they picked some kind of they picked this African American lady to act, and she's gorgeous. Don't get me wrong, she's doing a great uh, job playing herself and whatever, but she's not the same as the Starfire in Titans because the Starfire in Titans talks differently, acts differently, and she floats around. She can actually fly. She levitates. She has this green plasma blast that comes out of her body. And what's happening in Titans is totally different from the Teen Titans show that I watched, and it's not the same. He's definitely not the same. Starfire. So similar to that, this Taskmaster is not the same in any way, and you can pull out like some references to comics where characters are slightly different, and I'm fine with that. But it's just a disappointment to see this version show up. Of all the other versions of a character, that's all I gotta say. Okay, and the other thing, as for Scarlett Johansson, she did a fantastic job being herself as Black Widow and being the side character in a film once again. She's again not the main character in the movie, even though the movie is titled Black Widow. It is not about her being the Black Widow, it's about the rest of the Black Widows. And it's more so a story of this family just trying to pull through. And when they do go up against Dreykov, it's too easy for them. They get caught by Dreykov, who separates them, and he obviously finds out that Natasha is disguised as her mom, which is fine. Okay, he discovers that, but it blows my mind that they don't check the what do you call this clothes that Yelena is wearing, because she's actually concealing some kind of blade in her foot pocket or something. I mean, them being spies, you should clearly know that they'll be thinking of ways to keep themselves safe, concealing blades. They should be literally like scanned and checked thoroughly, stripped if they have to, because that's what they really do in real life. There are things they do in real life that are like such simple things for them to pull off in films when they do so many other crazy things in films. So simple things like checking the spies for weapons and tools, like it sounds like it makes sense, right? But they don't do that once again, and she escapes James Bond style because there's just something on her that's going to be useful for her to escape. And because Yelena escapes using that easy trick method, like she literally has a earpiece. She has like a thing in her ear which they use to communicate, and no one detected a earpiece after catching a spy. Could you guys imagine that? Like that's the stupidest thing I've seen in a spy movie, period. I've seen a lot of James Bond movies where he has like gadgets that although the gadget is concealed as a watch and whatever, if people investigate a spy's gadgets, they would figure out that he has something used to escape. But it still makes sense because it's like a watch that has magnetic abilities. He has like things that shoot darts, and a pen that clicks and explodes, all these cool little stuff that you can't really think of. But in this film, Yelena has a earpiece that everyone could see, and people are talking to her with it, and she has a blade in her foot, and none of that ever gets checked. And for some reason, the Red Guardian can be contained in a prison that is used to keep everyone else. Like it's the same. Like it doesn't show him, doesn't show how they could keep someone so strong in a glass prison. Like they really gotta come up with better ways of depicting how these super soldiers are contained, just to show the difference. Like you see Loki being contained in the first Avengers shows that he has to be in a special containment because he's ridiculously strong, powerful, and near godlike. So it's things like that that tick me off sometimes. But after she escapes and they fight against Dreykov, the fight's also really easy. They just have to just beat people up, beat the Taskmaster, beat Dreykov, and the only catch was is that Dreykov apparently has some kind of a like a pheromone that he has trained the widows to react to, where if the widows smell Dreykov's pheromones, they can't attack him. And apparently, it's something that they've been chemically induced with since they're kids, so they can't go against it. The only way they could ignore that pheromone control is if they sever a nerve that's inside their nasal cavity that detects pheromones. And you know how Natasha gets past it. You know how she severs that nerve. She slams her head on a table in front of Dreykov. She just like tells him like, okay, but you know what? And then she slams her head on the table, just sever the nerve, and she beats him up. Oh boy. It was at that moment I realized I'm watching a stupid film. Like I try to hold on. I try to tell, okay, the ending is coming. Just hold on and let's see what really happens. Let's see. Maybe there's a twist. That's a good one. Maybe there's something interesting that she will think of. Maybe she has to do something really painful to figure out a way to block the pheromones. Maybe she just has to wear a face mask and everything will be fine. Maybe she has to wear Taskmaster's mask and she can ignore the pheromones, or wear any gas mask and you'll ignore the pheromones. And if that's not the case, stand really, really far and just snipe the guy, just snipe Draco from really far away. And that also would make sense, but no, she slams her face on a table and says that she managed to surgically sever the nerve that's in a hidden part of a nose, protected by a bone in the nose. She shrugs it off, she has no pain, nothing. She smiles and she beats Dreykov up. So yeah, that's just how shitty this movie was. There's nothing else to it. There's absolutely nothing else besides what I've told you. Everything else in between are fillers, are just action sequences that are fine, but there's no story to it. There's no impact when you realize that this character is not going to die, obviously. So there's no stakes to begin with. So what they have to do is have a captivating story for us to actually follow. And it was really nice where they showed this kind of family, this sisterly bond that Natasha has, the family bond that the Red Guardian and the rest of them have. And this is the scene. This is the scene where the CGIs get worse as time goes on. Right? Like after these shots, after these blurred out, slightly background, slightly blurred out, right? After these shots that are close up shots that you'll see later as you watch the film and you realize the CGI just goes from bad to worse. And that family scene was the only thing that really kept me in it. Besides this, the rest of the film is it's just not a Black Widow movie. It's not not about Black Widow doing what she does best, which is be a spy. She doesn't really take down the organization intelligently. They just get lucky again and again. The organization is stupid. They don't check these spies. They don't they don't. They're not good. They're just a bad criminal organization. And it's a good thing the Red Room just fell because they serve no purpose whatsoever in stories to come and stories before. And yeah, it is quite clearly shown. So that's it from me. I apologize if I had to rant it out a little bit. I expected um, it to go this way, and it did. I didn't have any higher expectations because I knew exactly what the MCU is after recently. They just want to just churn out bullshit, and people are going to keep swallowing it. And I tried to keep an open mind to go to this film because I thought, since it's going to be probably the only Black Widow film ever made, I might as well watch it because I don't think anyone in the world is ever going to make a Black Widow film. Yeah, at least not for a long time. I really would like to see one, and I'm talking of a real story of for Black Widow, for Natasha Romanoff. It doesn't have to be Scarlett Joe. It can be Scarlett Joe. It doesn't matter. It just has to be a story that brings justice to the character of how powerful of a spy she actually is in the comics and what she's really capable of. And we only get to see glimpses of that in the Avengers. We get to see a lot of it in the Winter Soldier and some more in the Civil War. But yeah, this was not the film for Black Widow. This film should be called Black Widows, and that's fine, right? And also, it's not about Natasha, it's about Yelena, it's about the rest of the widows, and we get that. But Taskmaster was, not really that great. The Red Guardian was just he was just he's like a fat Thor version. For this movie, he's like a fat Thor version of the Red Guardian, and that's what he is in this movie. He's just there for comic relief. He has his own delusional idea that he fought Captain America somewhere. Maybe there was something that happened. They never showed. They never equated anything. But it seems like he's just bullshitting about fighting Cap and whatever. And yeah, there's nothing really special in this film. Like if you were to rank all the most like the best characters in this film, overall in the rest of the MCU, I think all of these characters would list at like the lower half. And Yelena would probably be the highest among these characters. She's probably the most likable. She's probably the only one that's actually unique, doing her own thing. She's really, she's a spy too. She's a Black Widow too, but she is nothing like her sister. She is still capable of her own thing. She goes through her own character arc, and that seems to be something different in this film. But I don't see the reason for Black Widow to be there because she's once again a side character, and that's the way it is. So I'm gonna pull up a rating here, and it's a fair rating, I think. I at least I hope it is. It's a 3 out of 10 film. And I mean, get used to it. There's nothing wrong with the rating being low for a bad movie. We just have to accept that there are just times when things don't really work out the way they should. And Black Widow was not one of those things. If you really enjoyed the film, well, good. I'm glad you did enjoy the film. I liked some parts in the film. I thought the opening montage was really good. And in fact, it was too good that the rest of the film couldn't keep up with what the montage showed, which is things happening out there in the world that really involves the fight in the shadows. And I really liked Yelena's character. I think it was done really well. A lot of the comedy from the Red Guardian was okay. There was some decent comedy that landed. I think it was okay, but it once again, like you can be funny, as I've said, even Fat Thor, you can be funny and all of that. But you gotta redeem the character in some way that shows why this character is special, even though they're fat and they seem pathetic, but they are pathetic, and that's the thing that I don't like about it. And as for Black Widow, she's a side character of her own film. It is true what people say. And Taskmaster being a woman, once again, I have no issue with that, but it's not Taskmaster. It's you could just call her, Widow Weapon X or something like that, and that would have been fine. But calling that Taskmaster and showing her in being able to copy fighting abilities and whatever, it's not really that cool either, because if you read the comics, Taskmaster even copies the likes of Spider-Man, which is amazing because Spider-Man is truly superhuman, but Taskmaster uses whatever is already available in his arsenal to keep up with Spider-Man and his moves and fight him. Whereas in this story, Taskmaster can only copy what a bunch of ordinary people, besides Red Guardian, of course. The rest of them are really ordinary people, or maybe not, because they can survive 5-story falls with no bruises and just walk it off, like Captain America does. So the number of super soldiers in these movies are getting ridiculous, especially after Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I feel like just everyone out there is super soldiers. It seems that the ratio of super soldiers is like I don't know, something like some cases, like a daily infection cases or something. Just there's too many super soldiers out there in the story, and they gotta find a way to, I don't know, maybe they need what's his name? Um, oh God, what's his name? That guy who went after the what do you call this? The super soldiers. His name. Right, Baron Zemo. Maybe they need Baron Zemo to come and clean up whatever is happening. So anyway, that's it from me. I hope you guys, I mean, I really hope that there's a better movie coming after this, and I think there are because, uh, there's Doctor Strange, and those sorts of films, and they may be eye candy and whatever, but they gotta have a story to back it up because. Story is like the core part of a movie, and if you can't get that right, I think everything else that happens is, it doesn't really have much weight. Like it's nice to have a visual spectacle and all that, but like this movie, by the way, its action sequences are not that amazing. To be honest, there's so many other films with better action sequences because these don't seem very believable. That's one thing. The second thing is that when the action sequences do happen, there's no stakes because we know Black Widow can't die. But as for the rest of the characters, they're just having too much fun. They're just joking around too much to the point where you realize that they don't care about anyone. They are not heroes in this film, and yeah, it's just the way it is. All right, guys, I'll see you in the next one.